Hi, my name is Michael Nacke and this 1035th day of war. A Russian cargo ship supplying forces in Syria has sunk in Mediterranean Sea. Ship entered the sea alongside 4 other vessels reportedly tasked with evacuating Russian troops and equipment from the country. More details in a minute. Ukrainian Armed Forces attacked the Russian Millerovo airfield in the Rostov region. The channels reported that the attack has had consequences. Number of Russian deserters is estimated to be in the tens of thousands. In the southern military district alone, over 19,000 soldiers are listed as having abandoned their units without permission. Total number of deserters across all military districts remains unknown. Trump's team has gained another member who has expressed skepticism about US support for Ukraine. Position in question is Deputy Secretary of Defense for Policy, which has been filled by military analyst Elbridge Colby. Among other things, he has criticized allowing Ukraine to strike Russian territory with Western-provided missiles. All this and more in the latest briefing. Subscribe to the channel and push the like button, and you can write your comment right here. Russian cargo ship Ursa Major has sunk in international waters, report the Spanish publication La Verdad. 14 sailors were rescued, while 2 remain missing. According to La Verdad sources, an explosion occurred on the vessel on December 23rd, causing it to list. Mediazona noted that the ship had been used for years to transport cargo as part of the so-called Syrian Express, a supply route for Russian forces in Syria. Nova Gazeta Europe highlighted that the ship is operated by a company Obordon Logistica, which is owned by the Russian Ministry of Defense. Assist analyst observed 5 Russian cargo ships entering the Mediterranean Sea, 3 military large landing ships, and 2 cargo vessels, including the Ursa Major. Analysts speculated that they were intended for the evacuation of Russian bases in Syria. A new, somewhat unpleasant piece of news from the United States. Trump has selected Elbridge Colby, a military analyst, as Deputy Secretary of Defense for Policy. He is known for his rather controversial stance on Ukraine. Colby suggested shifting the primary financial burden of supporting Ukrainian armed forces to Europeans, criticized Biden's decision to permit strikes on Russia using Western long-range missiles, opposed Ukrainians' NATO membership, and generally supports redirecting US attention to the Asia-Pacific region. In short, not quite Tulsi Gabbard, but still not great news. While speculation mounts about whether the new US president will reduce assistance to Ukraine, North Korea has no doubts about the unwavering course of its dear leader Kim Jong-un. Recent satellite images now show that North Korea has been increasing its ammunition shipments to Russia and expanding its domestic weapons production to meet Moscow needs. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal, citing US and South Korean officials. According to the newspaper, military equipment, including multiple launch rocket systems, is being transported to Russia by rail. Currently, rail freight traffic between two countries has reached record levels. Among supplied weaponry are Hwasong-11 missiles. Ukrainian sources report that Russia has already received over 100 of these projectiles. Ukrainian intelligence states that the Hwasong-11 may lack precision but has an impressive range. This is threat to our city, said a Ukrainian intelligence official. In exchange for weapons, North Korea receives money and oil from Russia. Western officials fear that Pyongyang might also request sensitive nuclear technologies from Moscow and potentially resources in the event of war on the Korean peninsula. There is also publicly accessible information about North Korean supplies. The D channel Military Informer published footage of a train carrying North Korean 170mm M1989 Koksan self-propelled artillery units and what appeared to be Pagong-sung-2 ballistic missiles launchers. However, Twitter user Blink has doubted the identification of the latter due to the absence of a component overhanging the rear part of the chassis, suggesting instead that the video displayed 240mm M1999 multiple launch rocket system. Additional reports indicate that the idea of deploying North Korean soldiers in Russia originated from Pyongyang, according to the New York Times. US intelligence agencies concluded that it was North Korean's idea, not Russian, although Putin quickly accepted it, the newspaper wrote. Nevertheless, according to the New York Times, North Korea initially received nothing in return for its assistance, and Kim Jong-un continues to hope for Moscow's gratitude in the in the form of technologies, diplomatic support, and its confrontation with West and other resources. US officials claim that North Korea has sent its best units to the front, but without real combat experience, making their effectiveness questionable. On the night of December 24, Russian Rostov region faced another drone attack. This time, Millerovo airfield came under fire. The channel's assessment of the incident differ. Fighter bomber reported, preliminarily we replied attack without losses in personnel or equipment. However, as the channel border guard from Hell wrote, unfortunately, these are consequences. Furthermore, details have emerged about the December 22 attack, also in the Rostov region. According to Astra, at least 4 drones struck the territory of the Kadymovsky military training ground in the village of Persinovsky near Novocherkassk. As a result of the attack, a fire broke out and ammunition began detonating in a warehouse on the training ground. There is no information on casualties. 150th Motorized Rifle Division is stationed near the training ground. Additionally, sources in Rostov's emergency services reported to Astra that a missile was shot down over Millerovo military airfield, apparently without causing damage or casualties. On December 22, drones also attempted to attack the Novocherkassk power plant. All UAVs were intercepted, but debris damaged power lines. Electricity supply was unaffected as backup power lines were used. Details also emerged about the drone attack on Kazan. At least one UAV tried to strike the Kazan helicopter plant on December 21st. According to Astra, one of the attacking drones was shot down directly over the plant on Tetsevskaya Street. Debris fell on the outskirts of the city, causing no damage or injuries. Other potential targets of the attack include the Kazan powder plant, the helicopter factory, military unit 58661, and the aviation factory airfield. Kazan powder plant is about 3 kilometers from a 5-story residential building on Clarot-Satkin Street, which was hit by one of the drones. Helicopter plant is approximately 6 kilometers from the building, and the aviation factory airfield is about 8 kilometers away. From the Azure Sky residential complex to military unit 58661, the distance is about 13 kilometers. The channel Military Informer also argued that the initial targets of the Kazan strikes were not residential buildings. They know that Ukrainian drones usually dive steeply toward their target, but the drone that hit the high rises flew straight. The authors conclude that the planning of the road failed to account for the presence of tall buildings, preventing the drones from reaching their designated target despite Russians' weak air defense performance. Only one drone was considered intercepted. 3rd Assault Brigade of Ukrainian Armed Forces published its own investigation based on the material obtained from the phone of Russian soldier Oleg Rudakov. Videos from the phones and intercepted communication indicate that during an advance into the village of Nevsky in the Svatova direction, Rudakov gave orders to torture, kill, and clear out local residents. It appears that nothing has changed in the Russian army since the days of Bucha and even the Chechen wars, when clearances were openly discussed on federal channels. Such clearances have also been carried out by Russian private military companies in Africa. Local media and human rights organizations report at least hundreds of civilian deaths, with those killed accused of collaborating with militants. Russian army in its offenses spares no one, not soldiers, civilians, enemies, or its own. New footage has emerged from the Kursk region showing the crossing at Darino, which the Russian armed forces, should be noted, have claimed to have taken multiple times. Video captures a significant amount of destroyed equipment. Israeli military analyst Yigal Levin analyzed footage of a failed attack by Ukrainian fighters of the 36th Marine Brigade in the Kursk region, describes the composition of the Russian column as rather strange from a doctrinal perspective. They sent a quad bike in front, followed by a tank, then an armored vehicle with infantry. This is not the first time Russians have sent an unprotected civilian vehicle first. Presumably, the purpose of the quad bike riders is to scout the road for mines, which are hard to detect with the tanks limited visibility. After of the Telegram channel officer write that on the eastern flank of the Kursk brigade head, Ukrainian forces has advanced over the past few days, gaining territory about 2 kilometers wide and equally deep towards Suja. Specifically, according to footage geolocated by the Z-channel Kremlin Karpis, Russian forces has taken control of the central part of Kurilovka. At the same time, on the western flank of the Ukrainian brigade head in the Kursk region, reports indicate Russian attacks near Kruglinkovo and in the direction of Viktorovka, according to the Insider's daily summary. Meanwhile, Vladimir Zelensky gave his assessment of North Korean losses, which significantly exceed figures previously reported by foreign sources. Today, I also received a report from Commander-in-Chief Syrsky on the front and areas of the Kursk operation. There are risks of the Russian army sending additional soldiers and military equipment supplied by North Korea, and we will respond tangibly. Preliminary data show that the number of killed and wounded North Korean soldiers in the Kursk region has already exceeded 3,000. It's important for the world to understand that the risk of destabilization around Korean Peninsula and its neighboring regions and waters increasing proportionally with the growth of cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. Transfer of modern warfare experience and spread of military technologies from Russia is a global threat. Cost of restoring stability is always significantly higher than the cost of effective pressure on those who destabilize situations and destroy lives. Meanwhile, the 80th Airborne Assault Brigade of Ukraine captured 2 Russian contract soldiers who shared some intriguing details about their interaction with North Koreans. According to them, the allies were better trained, equipped, and fed than the Russian soldiers. However, joint operations between Russian and North Korean troops were poorly coordinated, mainly due to language barriers, which sometimes led to misunderstandings. Russia noted that thanks to the Koreans who storm ahead, it has become easier to advance, while Russian soldiers play a role of consolidation groups. Forming pincers around Kurakhove and its surroundings, Russian forces continue to advance within the town itself, where Ukrainian forces remain entrenched in the industrial zone in the western part of town. A Ukrainian soldier and after of the Telegram channel officer writes, Russians are storming Kurakhove non-stop, pressing mainly with infantry, trying to find gaps in our defenses, meaning positions without Ukrainian infantry to penetrate further through these gaps. Honestly, it's very difficult to fight under such conditions. Kurakhove is being completely wiped out with glide bombs, as they use them like artillery, indiscriminately targeting entire areas just to destroy something. On the Vremivka salient, the Z-channel's various DV reports flag placements in Novy Komar, northeast of Velika Novoselka, while the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed the capture of Storozhevoye, south of the village. Consequently, if Ukrainian forces remain in Makharovka, they are likely encircled. This is supported by the last available version on the Deep State map, notes Insider. Along the Liman axis, Russian push on Terney, a village that the Ukrainian Armed Forces has defended for months, has intensified. Ukrainian serviceman Stanislav Bunyatov writes, pressure or Terney continues. Overall situation is difficult. Enemy has achieved partial success, but our guys are holding their positions. Coordination leaves much to be desired. Guys complain about the absence with the territorial defense units. A northern Ukrainian military officer adds, situation in Terney is tough. As I said back in spring 2024 and repeated now, the village of Terney is extremely important to us, as controlling it determines the fate of the entire Siversky direction without exaggeration. Over the past week, the situation has deteriorated significantly. A village already in ruins has now been completely obliterated by glide bombs. There's virtually nowhere to hold a line, and the Russians are trying to shove their infantry into every service, both literally and figuratively. Honestly, the outlook isn't very optimistic. Guys withhold out as long as they can well see. Russian soldiers participating in the endless meat grinder offensive continued to lie forgotten in the fields, needed by no one except perhaps their relative. Stories of two wives of missing soldiers are shared by the channel Don't Expect Good News. One woman reported that her husband went missing on September 21, 2024. She added that a group of 100 men was sent out, of which 50 died and the rest went missing. Only one soldier survived. Another woman spoke of her missing husband, who served in the 430th Motorized Rifle Regiment. She noted that her husband had been at the front for 3 years. She expressed outrage that extremely young soldiers born in 2005-2006 are being sent to the front. It's not surprising that such treatments of soldiers results in widespread desertion. Finally, some figures thought incomplete and limited non-military districts have become available. A database of servicemen from the southern military district who have deserts has been leaked online, report the channel Don't Expect Good News. In addition to the main document, which contains data on 19,210 individuals, supplementary tables list those who have already been found, 6,085 people, and data on previously AWOL servicemen detailing their outcomes: arrested, returned to duty, resigned to another unit. Notably, two-thirds of the AWOL servicemen from the Southern Military District were mobilized troops. Additionally, over half of these who deserted belonged to the 1st and 2nd Army Corps, formed from so-called People's Militaries of Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. It should be clarified that the figure of 19,210 does not reflect the full scope, and the database excludes the servicemen not officially reported as AWOL by their commanders, who instead rely on in-unit search groups. Russian commanders who cannot send subordinates to their deaths are also not idle, engaging in extortion and abuse. A mechanic driver from the 28th Regiment Separate Anti-Aircraft Missile Battery, Sergei Borisovich Zolotaryov, complained about extortion in his unit. According to the serviceman, his commander, Milashev, constantly demands money from soldiers elected for unit's needs. Zolotaryov stated that refusing to pay results in insult directed at him and other servicemen. The channel Don't Expect Good News shared a video reminiscent of the infamous phrase "I didn't send you there," which Soviet and Russian soldiers encountered from officials when returning to civilians' life after the Afghan and Chechen wars. An injured participant in the special military operation was denied a veteran combatant certificate. The draft office explained that his 6-month contract was insufficient and implied that he needed to sign another contract to obtain the required status. When men demanded an official right and refusal, draft office replied that it was impossible due to the absence of draft officer. And that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. My name is Nacke. Subscribe channel. See you tomorrow. Bye.